America. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the latest edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you as always from the nation's capital and the wiredtofishcoffee.com studios. You know this, Wired to Fish Coffee is my favorite coffee. It is a great tasting cup of coffee every time you do it, but every time you drink it, you also can do good with your drinking. You can actually have money go to do things like support Christian organizations and conservation in America. So go join me. Make it your favorite coffee as well. Go to wired2fishcoffee.com. Get a fantastic 10% discount on their smooth blends and also their great mugs. They got the Just the News tumbler. Go check that out. To get all that and get a 10% discount, just go to wired2fishcoffee.com. Use the promo code JustNews at checkout. All right, a busy day all around the world today. Let's start in Washington. Earlier today, the Supreme Court wrapped up oral arguments in a case that is sure to have some big consequences for President Trump's immigration agenda. It was all about birthright citizenship, specifically involving nationwide injunctions that so many of those lower courts and lower judges have used to block President Trump's order restricting birthright citizenship. Boy, the justices went round and around. At one point, the Supreme Court Chief Justice had to actually reprimand Justice Kagan for her line of questioning. It was a pretty contentious day, and it's kind of uncertain how this is going to play out. They were split on the issue of the birthright citizenship. There seemed to be more consensus that a single judge shouldn't be able to block an entire country. We have all the coverage over at justthenews.com, and we're going to delve into it a little bit here on the show as well. Now, President Trump also weighed in the Russia-Ukraine war earlier today after Russian President Vladimir Putin let it be known he's not going to the peace talks taking place in Turkey, even though Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky did show up. President Trump said aboard Air Force One that nothing would happen, unfortunately, in terms of achieving peace until he himself and Putin could get together, and he stressed that something needed to be done soon because, quote, too many people are dying. One other big development, a direct result of President Trump's trip to the Middle East. Iran today said that it is ready to make a deal with the Trump administration and specifically to give up all its nuclear weapons, its nuclear weapon program, its ambitions, and its enrichment capability to make future nuclear weapons if the Trump administration would lift the sanctions. I think there's going to be a little bit more negotiation, but this wasn't a blink. This is a major capitulation from Tehran, and my amazing colleague Amanda Head has been writing about this. Got another great story tomorrow on how President Trump isolated Iran to get this sort of outcome. Amanda, pretty big accomplishment on day 3 of the trip.
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible, and President Trump is wrapping up that trip. He will be heading back to the United States part of tomorrow and part of Saturday, but he closed it today with a historic capital investment into the United States. The president was in the United Arab Emirates today after securing a minimum of $800 billion in investment pledges, $600 billion from Saudi Arabia and $200 billion from Qatar. And in the UAE, he announced $200 billion in deals with that country, as well as finalizing a technology framework agreement allowing the UAE to buy NVIDIA chips as it looks to become a powerhouse in artificial intelligence infrastructure. Now, those all sound like pretty promising headlines, right? So promising, in fact, that we even saw a Democrat or two praise him. Congressman Jim Himes. Check this out.
I'm not in the habit of praising Donald Trump, but I got to tell you, the last week or so in the Middle East, Ukraine, Russia is a different story. Yeah. The last week in the Middle East, I go into the week fearing that the Prime Minister of Israel is hell-bent on going to war with Iran. I go into the week worried that we're going to miss the thread of an opportunity in Syria for the new leadership there. And I got to tell you, I think the president has, in this last week or so, played the Middle East pretty darn well.
So incredible comments from a Democrat. And John, President Trump is getting a little bit more credit on these types of things, especially for a president who a lot of folks said that when he came into office, especially in his first term, that things were going to be a bumpy ride, at least in the sector of foreign policy.
World War III is what I remember.
Yeah, World War III.
The world's coming to an end, and you got Iran capitulating. You've got hostages being freed on a daily basis, American hostages. All those predictions have gone entirely sideways because they were never true. They were based on emotion, not on fact. And I think the more people see the facts of the president's policies, the outcome of these tariffs now beginning to yield major dividends. And I think we have to be north of 10 trillion now in total investments with what went on today and yesterday in the Middle East. So really remarkable impact. Speaking of impact, our first guest tonight, he knows a thing or two about it. He's created a lot of it in his tenure as the Attorney General and top law enforcement official in the great state of Texas. He's now running for U.S. Senate, what's going to be one of the most closely watched Senate races in a long time. He is the great Attorney General, Ken Paxton, and he joins us by phone right now. General Paxton, good to have you back on the show, sir.
So good to be back. There's obviously a lot happening, and you guys are right on top of it.
Well, it's hard to keep on top of everything you're doing. You're always moving quickly, doing big stuff. This week, one that really affects the dinner and kitchen table a lot, you taking on the big cereal brands for misleading statements that they make about their sugary flavored cereals. Tell us a little bit about that. It's getting a lot of buzz all around the country.
Well, they've been doing it for years. Many of the cereal makers advertising cereals as healthy for children, but not disclosing the chemicals and also the high sugar content and the damaging effect of those products. So we just want them to advertise in a non-deceptive way, and they haven't done it. So that's why we're pursuing them.
Huge and historic.
Well, absolutely. And, sir, I would think that if this is legally actionable, I mean, there are tons of other food items on the market that would fit into this category of misleading ingredients, misleading slogans on the front about it being healthy when, in fact, it has tons of sugar. Is this a case that can be mimicked maybe by other states' attorneys general, if you take the Senate, in other parts of the food world?
There's no doubt. And look, there's lots of things we don't know about, lots of products that even I don't know about. So if people have complaints, they can go on our Texas OAG website and they can complain, and it gives us the opportunity to know about things and potentially investigate those companies. And if we find that they're doing something wrong, we have the opportunity to go after them.
So important. Yeah, a historic moment. The country's finally focusing on its health after decades of neglect, and it's really fun to watch all this. I want to turn to politics because, speaking of health, you have a healthy lead in the Texas GOP primary polls for the Senate, up 16 points on the incumbent. John Cornyn, tell us a little bit about what that's done for the excitement of your candidacy.
Well, look, that's a poll done by his own team, and that was a poll that Trump won by only 2 points. Ooh. And as you know, Trump won Texas by 14 points. So I'm not even sure if that poll measured my primary voters properly, because in all of my polls, we've done 3 different polls, one from the president's pollster, one from Ted Cruz's pollster, and we did a third poll. Those polls have me up 25 to 27 points. So, look, I don't know how John Cornyn overcomes that lead, given his history of not performing well for the people of Texas and not doing the things they want and doing things that they really despise, including restricting gun ownership in America.
Mm. Yeah. Well, and, sir, for whatever isolated reasons people have for not wanting John Cornyn to serve another term in the Senate, there's also a broader issue with Republicans, which is that even though they have a mandate in both the House, the Senate, the White House, and the popular vote, there just doesn't seem to be much of a sense of urgency on either side. Is that what you're hearing from, or on either side, meaning the House and the Senate? Is that what you're hearing from your constituents?
Yeah, it seems like they're very passive. The establishment seems to control it, and it's kind of, I often hear about the uniparty, and that's what it seems like is going on in Washington. That's certainly not what my constituents want in Texas, and that's why I think they're ready for a change after 24 years of John Cornyn. I think people want effective leadership that isn't just listening to the people in Washington, D.C. that don't really care about getting good things done for America, but they're ready for new leadership. And that's why Donald Trump got elected. And I think that's why John Cornyn's time is up.
So he's been in the hierarchy of the Senate a long time. You take a look at the 2 chambers. The House has turned out tons of legislation and got it approved, got it all the way through the process, got over the Senate, and the Senate is still the same old sleepy place, barely gets anything done. And now the big bill comes up, and it doesn't look like Senate Republicans have anywhere near the votes necessary to even make a little tiny dent in the spending craziness that we have in Washington. How important is this next month for United States senators to get behind the president, codify his agenda, and start cutting the size of Washington?
Look, it's extremely important. And that is the one good thing about my candidacy. It's definitely moved John Cornyn in that direction.
Yeah.
Prior to that, Trump fan. He was not a Trump supporter, said we shouldn't support him in 2016 and said that we shouldn't elect him in 2024. But this primary has really forced him to reconsider and change his plans and be a Trump supporter, at least until the primary is over, and then he'll go back into being what he's been in the past.
Sir, if you do take that seat, there are a lot of folks out there who are doomsdayers and say, oh, there's too many rhinos in the Senate, you're not going to change anything. I personally think that a bee can move a bull, and I think that you are perfectly positioned to be that bull. How do you enact change in a chamber that is so desperately in need of it?
You know, I've heard that my entire political career. So, I mean, they told me that when I became AG. They told me that when I was in the state Senate. I just don't believe it. I think if you're aggressive and you're not looking at a long-term career, you're really looking at what can we get done right now. I'm not looking for what I can do in 4 years or 8 years. I want to do it now, because I don't view this as like a long-term job. I view it as a very short-term position where every day that I'm there matters, and every day matters getting things done for the American people and not just wasting time, which I see so much of in Washington.
Yeah, well, you are definitely telling the truth there. This is a town that can waste time and money like none other in the world. It's crazy. So I want to turn quickly to what happened before the Supreme Court today. A very important case on birthright citizenship. Are illegal immigrants entitled to it? But it also devolved into a second very important issue, the role that federal judges have, and can they really enjoin an entire country from a single district? I want to just get your take on how important this case is and where you think the justices will end up.
Look, I think it's very important. It's important in defining this country as one that has borders and one that can't be skirted around. And one of the challenges with birthright citizenship is obviously people pop into this country illegally, and suddenly their children are here legally if we allow birthright citizenship. So extremely important. And as far as these judges who give nationwide injunctions, you'll notice, like under the Biden administration, the Obama administration, there were very few nationwide injunctions granted. They were necessary for us to stop illegal immigration. We got a few from Biden, I think a total of 6 over 4 years. But the way these liberal judges are defining and expanding the role that they have, it's out of control, ridiculous, and there needs to be a stop to it.
Mm-hmm. Sir, President Trump has done so much to improve the border situation, but he's only there until 2028 or early 2029. After that, there is going to have to continue this improvement at the border. When it comes to the durability of President Trump's policies, I know this is something that will have very long-reaching results, but what are some of the main things that President Trump needs to do, if he hasn't done them already, to make sure that the immigration crisis is solved for good?
Well, look, he can't force the next president to follow the law. It was as simple as this. President Trump hasn't created any new laws. In his first term, he effectively fought illegal immigration. He's done even a better job this time. And it's simply this. He sends the message that we are going to enforce the law. And Joe Biden on day one said, we are not enforcing the law. And he gave the cartels carte blanche to bring those people, not even sneaking across the border, to actually bring them to Border Patrol. So when you have a president that's subverting the law like Joe Biden did, who enabled the cartels, it's hard to stop it because everybody goes, we've got a free ride in, whereas President Trump is taking the opposite approach, which is you're going to have to follow our laws to get in.
Yeah, that's so true. So I want to finish with one last question. You were the victim of an enormous amount of lawfare. Justice Department, within your own state. We had an extraordinary story that broke here last week. It had impact this week. Tulsi Gabbard releasing a memo showing that the Biden administration lowered the standard for when the FBI can open up on an American citizen from the normal predicate, which is a factual basis to believe a crime occurred, to any concerning non-criminal behavior. Extraordinary erosion. Now, to Tulsi Gabbard's credit, she's withdrawn that and said it's been ended. But for 4 years, that was the law of the land. That was the practice of the Justice Department and FBI. How dangerous is that low standard, that idea that any concerning non-criminal behavior can suddenly become a reason for the FBI to start snooping on you?
Look, the same thing happened to me. They investigated me for 4 years, and they used the same standard. They didn't have any evidence of a crime, just people claiming that they had a good faith belief that something was wrong, but no basis in any kind of fact or law. And so it's very dangerous. I felt like I was living in a third world country, Venezuela, China, whatever. It did not feel like a free country. So it's extremely dangerous. One of the most dangerous things that's happened to our country is the FBI in the Department of Justice becoming weaponized to go after political opponents like Donald Trump, like Tulsi, and like me. And there were many, many others. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of illegal cases where the FBI and DOJ, Department of Justice, weaponized their powers to go after political opponents. And it is absolutely scary and wrong for that to have happened.
You ended up beating all of them, and I want to remind everybody, the Biden administration honestly was heading out the door, finally shut down its 4-year investigation. Obviously never charged it because there was nothing to charge, but for 4 years, the process was the punishment for you, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And then they insinuate, and of course the media grabs a hold of it, and opponents like John Cornyn, who don't care about the law, even though he was a judge, insinuate that President Trump is guilty. John Cornyn did that, and he insinuated that I was guilty and said I should be in prison, or that I would be in prison. And he insinuated that Trump had done the same thing. So I find it's disgusting and despicable that they did it, but then you have people piling on like John Cornyn, who supposedly were judges and should care about the rule of law. That has not been his practice. He's a political guy, not a legal guy, not a rule of law guy.
Yeah, well, he's going to have a handful running against you. That I am certain of. General Paxton, it's always a great honor to have you on the show today. Thanks for spending time on a busy day with us.
All right, you guys have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Thank you so much. All right, folks, what a great interview. All right, coming up next, what does President Trump's approval rating look like so far? Well, it's going up even more now. We got a great conversation ahead with one of my favorite pollsters, Rich Paris, right after this. Hey, folks, what if I told you your retirement could vanish overnight? Now, that's not fear-mongering. It's a warning, because right now our government is over $37 trillion in debt. The dollar is weakening, inflation is eating away your savings, and while most Americans are stuck watching the headlines, the smart money is already moving. Big banks around the world, well, they're dumping dollars and buying gold like never before. They know what's coming, a potential dollar reset that could crush the value of everything you've worked so hard for. That's why American Alternative Assets created a free wealth protection guide to help you protect what you've earned with time-tested precious metals like gold and silver. Go to johnlikesgold.com or call 1-855-GOLD-340. That's 855-GOLD-340 to get your guide right now. That's 855-465-3340 if you don't want to do the spelling. Don't wait for a financial crisis to start protecting your future. Be early, be ready, be protected. Remember, go to johnlikesgold.com or call 855-GOLD-340. That's 855-GOLD-340 to get your free guide right now.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. We are on day 136 of President Trump's second term. Hard to believe the time has flown by so fast, and he is getting a lot done. His trip in the Middle East this week epitomizes that, where he has made several deals that are bringing hundreds of billions of dollars in investments back to the United States. And his tariff policies, at least for now, seem to be working. But how do the American people feel about how the president has been doing? We've seen all sorts of polls on this. Reuters Ipsos says that the president has a 44% approval rating, and that his approval is trending up after the markets have begun bouncing back. So with us to discuss that and to look ahead to the midterms, because it's never too early to do that, especially with a Congress that hasn't passed much of anything yet. The director of Big Data Poll, Rich Barris. Rich, thanks so much for being here.
And thanks for having me as always, Amanda. It's good to be here.
Good to see you. All right. So President Trump is wrapping up what I think, by all accounts, even Democrats, has been a very successful excursion to the Gulf states. How do you anticipate that is going to affect his polling?
I did not get the dramatic decline that others did show after the 100-day mark, but he was on the upswing. And I think that after this, it always makes if they're successful, it always makes a president look presidential when he's out there on the world stage. And then despite the media not covering it as much, these clips make their way around social media. People share it with their family and their friends. The speech in Saudi Arabia, I actually think was historic. I think it was big. And I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people, or it already did, because it might have been the most articulate way I've ever heard Donald Trump, or the most effective way I've ever heard Donald Trump articulate why he believes in this new order that he's trying to create. And then also, if people listened a little bit more, Amanda, they might understand why he has such an appeal, because that is what most Americans think. That's what they believe and what they want.
Yeah. That's it. He really is in tune with the everyday Americans. Maybe not the elitists, yes, but definitely the everyday American in the center of this country. He's also starting to develop this remarkable reputation that he is a peacemaker. Now, he obviously was in his first term, despite all the predictions that he was about to bring World War III upon the globe. But he created the Abraham Accords. He had all these things. Russia was kept in check. But these recent developments, where even Iran today taps on the table, said, all right, we're willing to give up our nuclear weapons. Let's make a deal. He is creating a more stable and peaceful world than I think anyone could imagine would be accomplished in the first 4 or 5 months of a presidency.
When he was running for re-election in the midst of COVID and everything, this is interesting because we've actually asked this question to battleground states and nationally. We always compared the candidates, and we would ask people whether or not they thought it was more likely that America would be involved in a new conflict under this presidency or that presidency. And something happened in his first term where there were people in Minnesota, in Michigan, and various Midwestern states where this really matters a lot that told us that, but they thought Biden somehow would be the peacemaker. So something had happened during that time, and I didn't understand it, but throughout Biden's 4 years, the mask came off. And people are now back to seeing Donald Trump the way they saw him when they first elected him in 2016, and that has been steady. So for him to go abroad, especially among people's fears that maybe there's going to be economic instability, which could lead to some foreign instability, and then do what he did and maintain that message is a big deal, because people say, there we go, there's the Trump I thought I knew, and it reinforces it. And that's obviously the policy he's pursuing. He will. I actually think this will be something years from now, when Donald Trump is gone, that we'll all talk about how rare of a moment it was. The president who tried to create an order where we were not concerned about the next new conflict. It's rare.
Yeah, it is rare.
Rich, Trump supporters are very pleased, I think, with his performance. I think that, in all of the polling, you're going to find a very high Republican approval rating for him. Congress, not so much. And we got midterms coming up next November. What's your generic polling looking like for Republicans heading into next November?
Republicans are being saved by Democrats being on loop, repeat, rinse, repeat, whatever you want to call it. They're stuck in this hamster wheel cycle, and they just keep running in the same spot, trying the same things, and it's not really working. And that's good for Republicans because they're not doing anything. And at this point, it's a generic. I agree with them more on these policies that are giving them a little bit of a lead, which shocked me. me a bit, but they did have a little lead. But that's all that's doing it, man. It's almost, I'd rather them do nothing than do policies that I disagree with, to pass legislation that I disagree with. But that isn't inspirational. And heading into a midterm, they better be careful, because Democrats have a base that votes. We've been over this a couple of times on the show, right? They have the base that is overly or more educated, credentialed, and they have higher voting participation rates than the Republican base now does. Things are changing. So if they don't inspire people to get out, then the generic polling has been a bad indicator of recent years. It may be again if they don't, get motivated here and do something of something noteworthy. In Trump's first term, they passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. They can't even make it permanent right now. They're having a difficult time just simply enshrining it and not letting the rest of some of those provisions sunset. And it's underwhelming.
Yeah, underwhelming is a great word. I kind of feel like there is a moment ahead, maybe in the next 6 to 8 weeks, as the insanity in Washington inside the Marble Asylum grows, that they can't cut things, they can't save tax cuts, they can't do anything that Republicans said they were sent to Washington to do, that the Tea Party movement, which has sort of been dormant for a long time, could suddenly start showing up in congressional districts all around this country, particularly the wafflers, and put some pressure. Is that part of the party ripe for a revival moment to get these guys over the finish line?
And I would say plus something. And what do I mean by that? Donald Trump's position, for instance, on social programs like Medicare and Medicaid was a popular position. It's part of the reason why he's able to win some of these states that other Republicans aren't. And they get hit with the same challenges every time they do try to bring modest reforms and cuts to spending, or even reductions and increases in spending, because we know Washington calls that a cut, right? Every time they do, it's the same thing, John, all the time. The CBO scoring that's flawed, followed by a bunch of mainstream media polls asking if people want Social Security cut, which isn't really accurate of what we're talking about. If you ask people that, you'll get 70% opposition. If you ask people, however, whether or not they are willing to take some modest reforms to these programs in order to ensure solvency or to get the debt under control, you'll get a more honest answer, because that's what we're talking about. Republicans just have to find the stomach for this fight, because there are people out there who aren't even diehard Republicans. They just have common sense and they understand that this cannot continue forever. But I feel like Republicans fall for the same playbook over and over. It's how Washington does it. Run to the CBO, run to the New York Times, run to the Washington Post, get the same headlines. They did it with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, in fact, but they had a big enough majority where they still got it through. And by the way, the CBO scoring was wrong. So I don't even know why we listen to some of these institutions. Republicans, the best thing they could do to get that vote out, to motivate those people, is to be and govern like the people they pretend to be when they're on the campaign trail. Yeah. Just do it. I think they will be pleasantly surprised how many new people they motivate and inspire, and people can get behind them and say, you know what, that wasn't easy, but at least I know where they stand, and they come through on what they say, and people and voters respect that. Yeah. They do.
They should co-opt the OG Nike slogan. Just do it. Before we let you go, because midterms are a year and a half out, but as soon as that is over, we're going to be talking about 2028. Every poll that I see has AOC at the top, but those polls don't include Gavin Newsom. If you were a betting man, who would you put at the top for 2028 Democrats?
Yeah, this is a long way away, so don't hold me to it, right? Because there tends to be people who come out of nowhere. I actually think that the real compromise candidate here would be like a Pete Buttigieg. He's out there doing his thing. I know that most of us probably look at it pretty unseriously. How could you run a country if you couldn't run a small town as mayor, right? Or be the transportation secretary? But he's doing everything that needs to be done to get your name out there before you're thinking of running, and he outperformed against expectations the first go around. I feel like AOC is got a lot of energy, but I'm not there yet. I'm just not there yet. I feel like congressional candidates don't make good, or can even sitting congressmen and women don't make good nominees or primary candidates for president. At least that's what history tells us.
Yep, that's very fair. All right, Rich, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, go check out his company. He's the director of Big Data Poll. Always amazing and accurate numbers. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, coming up, we have a very cool story to share with you involving America's semi-sesquicentennial birthday celebration next year. So excited. Don't go anywhere.
Hey folks, you might be wondering, when's the right time to start adding collagen to my diet? How about today? Collagen production starts to dwindle in your 20s, and by the time you hit your 50s like me, it's decreased, and it contributes to wrinkles, sagging skin, and joint discomfort. Now, Native Path Collagen can help. It's packed with only type 1 and 3 collagen fibers, the ones your body needs most for healthy joints, for healthy skin, bones, hair, nails, and also, believe it or not, your gut. Plus, it's third-party tested for purity and with no fillers, no additives, and no artificial junk. That's important to me. 2 scoops a day of Native Path delivers 18 grams of protein. Mix it into your coffee, your tea, your soup, or any drink. It's completely flavorless and easy to use. Right now, you can get a special bundle deal at the fraction of the retail price. Plus, you're going to get free shipping. Available at getnativepath.com/justnews. That's getnativepath.com/justnews. With over 4 million jars sold, thousands of 5-star reviews, and a 365-day money-back guarantee, this is your moment to take control of aging before symptoms get worse. So go to getnativepath.com/justnews right now. Supplies are limited and demand is surging. That's getnativepath.com/justnews. Welcome back, America. It's hard to believe we're just about a year away from the 250th birthday of this great nation, America. And I'm young enough, or old enough to remember, I'd like to say young enough to remember, the bicentennial celebration of 1976, one of the extraordinary assets during that long celebration. We celebrated our 200th anniversary here, the American Freedom Train. There is an idea to bring it back for the 250th anniversary, and we're very lucky to be joined by the train engineer and the person behind the 76 American Freedom Train, who now wants to make it part of the 250th celebration of America. He is Ross Rowland. Ross, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. It's great to be with you and your audience.
Before we go about and talk about next year's big celebration, remind us how you and John Wayne, your family, this extraordinary project of the 1976 celebration came to be.
Well, we were on a special train in 1969, which we ran from New York to Utah and back to draw public attention to the 100th anniversary of the linking of America by railroad at Promontory, Utah in 1869.
Wow.
And John Wayne and I were riding on the observation car, and he said to me, Ross, look at the crowds at all these road crossings, thousands of people. It's amazing. He said, 7 years from now, we're going to be 200 years old. We ought to do a special train to celebrate the bicentennial. And I said, I'll tell you what, John, if you get Hollywood behind me, I'll do the heavy lifting and go do the rest of it, and we'll make a deal. And we shook hands on that observation car. He kept his word. He brought a lot of the Hollywood luminaries into the foundation. We formed a 501c3. We were blessed to get 5 great American companies, General Motors, Kraft Foods, Prudential, Pepsi, and Atlantic Richfield Energy, to become co-sponsors.
Wow.
Their sponsorship fees paid for half of the $60 million budget, and the other $30 million came from the 7 million tickets that we sold to the American people to go through the exhibit. And we went on a 21-month, 48-state trip. That 7.6 million people bought a ticket at 138 cities to see the display, all pulled by steam, of course.
Yeah.
And 4 million kids and 3.6 million adults went through the train. It was the only bicentennial project that worked in all 48 states. It was the only one.
That's amazing.
And I was, at that time, the father of 3 young children, and my fondest hope, John, for the train, and Amanda, was that the kids that came out of the exit car, the 10th car, would have a greater appreciation of how fortunate they were to have been born Americans with this country that we're inheriting by birthright. And I talked to thousands of kids when they came off the exit ramp in my work clothes. They didn't know who I was. And I can assure you that we achieved that goal in spades. So it was a great project. Those 5 great companies helped us immensely. President Richard Nixon was very, very helpful in getting us the artifacts from the National Archives, the Library of Congress, and the Smithsonian. And that let us go to the rest of the American museum community and borrow 512 original artifacts on those 10 display cars from 285 museums across America. And we want to do it again next year for our 250th birthday. Same thing, steam locomotive powered, beautiful exhibition train carrying many of the country's treasures, our founding documents, etc., to the American people in all 48 states. And let's bring the birthday to the people. And with President Trump's help, we're confident we can do it. And this time we want to carry the Liberty Bell on loan from Philadelphia.
Wow, that's big.
On a special car. You can see over my, well, I don't know if you can see it, over my shoulder here is an illustration of how the Liberty Bell car will look on the train. The big reason we want to carry the Liberty Bell this time is we want President Trump to have the opportunity to extend an invitation to all of America's Medal of Honor families, Gold Star families, and Blue Star families to come to the Freedom Train when it's in their town as his guest, and they alone will be afforded the privilege as they pass the Liberty Bell exhibit to touch it or kiss it as a token of appreciation from a grateful nation. And we hope President Trump will see the value of that.
Sure.
I'm sure he will. And we will proudly host those families as VIP guests on the train and make sure they're taken special care of. And the other thing we want to do this time is invite the children of America to bring their pennies to the train.
Yeah.
The 8 million that go through the train and the 42 million who see it by internet. How do you say, cyber?
Yeah.
The all 50 million school kids will be exposed to it, and we want them to bring or send in their pennies for peace. And we're going to take a bit of the funds that those pennies for peace raise and create a children's gift peace bell 3 times the size of the Liberty Bell to celebrate 3 centuries of democracy. and hang it in a place of honor somewhere in Washington at the Children's Peace Plaza, as shown here. And ring it once a day at 11 o'clock in the morning as a wish for peace from the children of America to the people of the world. And ask each of the contributing children to write a short 250 words or less essay of how they intend to contribute to a peaceful world. And we'll save all of those essays thanks to computers. And when they come to the Children's Peace Plaza here, they can punch their name into one of the many computers along the edge, and up will come their name and their home address when they contributed, and their 250-word essay.
Ross, I am so sold on this. I love this, but I have to know. So, what is the Capitol looking like? How are you going to be able to raise this? What help do you need?
The bicentennial train in today's dollars cost $60 million. Okay. Half of that came from sponsorships. Half of it came from the 7 million tickets we sold. The 250th birthday train will cost $120 million today's dollars, and we intend to raise all of that from wealthy Americans and/or corporate co-sponsors. And I'm confident that with some help from President Trump and Elon Musk and other leaders in Washington, that we will be able to achieve that readily. And that will pay for the train, so that this time, Amanda, the ticket revenues can all go to be entirely devoted to addressing the homeless veteran situation, which President Trump has said that he wants to address. Absolutely. So the estimated $100 million we will generate from ticket sales and fundraisers we do on the VIP cars in all 100 display cities, all of that money, 100 cents on the dollar, will go to help the homeless veteran situation.
You really thought this through, Russ. I've gotten to know you a little bit, and you're a patriot. You love your country, and you're so selfless. You're doing a lot of work here for free just to make this happen. We're going to get the attention to everybody that matters in Washington about this. Real quickly, if there's a corporate donor, a private individual watching tonight who wants to reach out and make a donation, get this started, get the fund going, what's the best way for them to do that?
Stand by at the moment, if you will, until we're sure that we've crossed some critical bridges, such as the artifacts, et cetera, so that we know for sure it's going to happen, and then we will come back to you and ask you to re-ask that question and give them the address to where they can send the donation. Right now, hold your powder and stay dry.
All right, we're going to take you up on that, but we might toot your whistle every so often because we really love what you're doing. Ross, what a great honor to have you on the show. I'm so proud to know we have people like you in this country doing great things and celebrating our history and the greatness of our country. It's an honor to know you, and it's an honor to have this conversation today. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Amanda. It's great to be with you all.
Yeah, we had a great time as well. Thanks so much. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, more right after these messages.
Welcome back, everybody, to Just the News, No Noise. Just like we were talking with Rich Barris about ups and downs in the polls, there have been a lot of ups and downs in the financial markets, but something you might not have heard about is U.S. Treasuries and a possible risk emerging with them. But President Trump, fresh off of the last day of this Middle East trip, I feel like that's going to affect the markets as well. So we've got someone here to join us to answer all of these questions. He is the CEO of American Alternative Assets, Shannon Davis. Shannon, thanks so much for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So we were all eyes glued to the television watching, it seems like, every step of the way, President Trump from Saudi Arabia to Qatar to UAE. But I saw something today in President Trump's eyes in UAE as he was looking at that 3D grid that was so technologically advanced. It looked like something from a spaceship, and I could just feel the jealousy in the president because we know how much he loves technological innovation and toys and having the best of the best. Do you think that these investments that President Trump has collected all along the way, that President Trump is going to use that, especially in the tech space, to just absolutely ignite that sector in America?
Yeah, well, it needs to be reignited. It took a little bit of a downturn when the year started. It's made its way back. That he's definitely made some really good deals. I mean, $600 billion on the surface, sounds like a lot, but really at the end of the day, we still have a debt of $37 trillion. So, it's definitely a notch under the belt, but we've got bigger problems.
Yeah. All right, you guys are my favorite go-to place for gold. And I want to ask this question because I just read this in the last 24 hours. U.S. government of America just imported a ton of gold, a mountain of gold. Why did it happen, and why should that be a warning sign for us?
Well, yeah, it's 600 tons of gold.
It's huge.
Tons. That massive from London and Switzerland. This is according to the World Gold Council data. Okay. So these are real numbers. The reason why it should concern people is we're bringing in gold because our dollar is getting replaced. I mean, China has opened up insurance companies to swap greenbacks for gold. The Asian market is dumping treasuries slowly, strategically. They don't have to rush because they've got the control, and they have gold. Saudi Arabia has gold. So there's a reason why they're importing it. You have to think about our central banks as the world's biggest piggy bank. They've, throughout the last year, brought in over 1,000 tons. Third straight year that they've done that. We haven't seen this type of push since the 1950s, when Elvis was king and TVs were still furniture.
All right, I know the website is John Likes Gold, but Amanda likes gold too. Yeah. Where on earth are they holding all of that? The
COMEX is bringing in a ton of it, 700% that they've brought in. The Fed Reserve is where it's being held, and they brought in just May alone the COMEX, which is a futures trader. They have to back that paper with real physical gold and silver. They're starting to bring it in as well. So there's a gold rush happening, and it's not going to stop anytime soon.
And it's coupled with something that I think is about to happen if the media is right, and that is a dollar dump. So a gold rush and then a dollar dump. Asian nations getting rid of American dollars. It's already at a very low number right now, the value of the dollar. But why would these Asian nations want to get rid of this right now?
Yeah, the dollar's dropped 8% since February. They've been dumping for a long time. We spoke last week about Russia. Russia's been getting rid of dollars since 2009. Yeah, they were prepared when the sanctions came. They didn't have much money. The de-dollarization's been going on for a long time. The reason they're doing it is because now they're investing in their own country's currency. The Asian markets are dumping it because they're a part of the BRICS nation. They're trying to rival our currency. The Western-led currency for so many years is no longer happening. These Eastern states, countries, are making power plays with their own currency, and that's why they're giving back the dollars. But slowly, they have the control. China, Japan, the two biggest treasury holders, they've got a lot of power. So it makes you wonder if they're anticipating trouble or planning on causing it.
Yeah. President Trump is no doubt an innovator, and he loves being on the cutting edge of innovation. He is finishing off this trip in the Middle East, a region of the world that utilizes cryptocurrency to a pretty great degree compared to a lot of other places. Do you think that ignited something in him with respect to cryptocurrency, maybe examining the policies we have, policies there should be to protect it? What do you think will happen there?
Yeah, crypto's been embedded in a lot of things we've done. XRP, I'm a believer in some of them. Fundamentally, we need it because our monetary system is digital. Central bank digital currency. We have pilot programs across the entire world. There's 11 countries that are already fully digital with central bank digital currencies. Crypto is just another format, but it's private. Trump's got his own digital coin. He was killing it when he took office in late November, December. Astronomical. So that's where the world's going. So I think he needs to pay attention to that, and that's what he's doing.
Yeah. CEO of American Alternative Assets, Shannon Davis, thanks so much for being with us tonight. And to our viewers, if you want to learn more about American Alternative Assets, go to johnlikesgold.com.
I love that site. I love it. I'm sharing it everywhere.
Or call 855-GOLD-340. That's your guide now. So 1-855-GOLD-340 to get your guide now. That's 855-465-3340. All right, everybody, one more break. And then on the other side, we've got Ben Berquam to highlight what he has been going through embedded with ICE the last few days.